Good, thank you.
All right, great, thank you. Welcome and good morning, transportation partners, stakeholders, and members of the public. I'm pleased to welcome you to the South hearing on Caltrans' proposed 2024 State Highway Operations Protection Program, also known as the SHOPP. Today's hearing is informational only and no action will be taken. The proposed 2024 SHOPP is part of the state's Fix It First program and includes $21 billion in projects over the next 4 years. It is a product of a strategic transportation planning process used by Caltrans to determine the most cost-effective way to apply the state's limited resources towards projects on the state highway system. The 2024 SHOPP is the first transition to the Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure, also known as CAPTI, and includes over 100 projects where Caltrans has added climate adaptation, additional safety, and bike and pedestrian elements to carry over projects already initiated prior to the implementation of CAPTI. We look forward to hearing more from Caltrans today about how the proposed 2024 SHOPP prioritizes projects that will preserve and protect the state's transportation assets in an equitable and climate-friendly manner. The Commission is responsible for providing accountability and transparency to ensure that SHOPP funds are used effectively and efficiently and consistent with the law. Today's hearing provides Caltrans an opportunity to present an overview of the proposed program and also provides transportation partners, stakeholders, and members of the public an opportunity to give input on the program. Thank you for joining us for this SHOPP hearing. Your participation is valuable to the Commission in carrying out its duties. Douglas will now provide instructions for participants wishing to comment on the proposed 2024 SHOPP, both in person or remotely.
Thank you, Commissioner Grisby. Welcome to the 2024 SHOPP Southern California hearing. The CTC exists to make transportation planning, funding, and policy more understandable and accountable. Our hearings take place in diverse locations around the state so that our commissioners and staff can hear directly from our stakeholders all around California. We are pleased to adjust to a hybrid in-person webinar format to make this hearing more accessible than ever. Please bear with us should we encounter any technical challenges. The hearing agenda is located on our website, www.catc.ca.gov. Any document the CTC creates can be translated into any language you need. Simply email us at ctc@catc.ca.gov and we'll have them returned to you as quickly as possible. Live closed captioning is available for this hearing. You should see the presenters on the screen. There's also live closed caption, American Sign Language is available, and you should see the interpreter on the screen. Live closed captioning is also available. Please select the Show Captions tab at the bottom of your screen. There are a number of language options there to choose from. We welcome comments from the public at each of our hearings. For those attending in person, please submit a speaker slip to the clerk, that's me, to let us know you want to make a comment on an item. For those attending via Zoom, you should see the Zoom webinar control panel, likely located at the bottom of your screen. There you'll find the raised hand and Q&A tabs. We encourage you to use the raised hand feature as early into the public comment item as you can to give the system time to acknowledge you. Commission staff will let you know when it's your turn to make a comment. Alternately, you may use the Q&A tab to submit your comment. Please be sure to include the agenda item number you are commenting on. Commission staff will read the comment on your behalf. As a reminder, each registered attendee is provided a unique link and phone number to access this webinar. These should not be shared with other participants, as this can create confusion for staff when calling on you to make your comments. Please do your best to be concise. Please make sure that your comments add new information. If you agree with the comments of the previous speaker, simply make that statement. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating service adequate time for accurate translation. Since we often have many speakers, we ask that you make your point in 3 minutes or less. If, for some reason, we have many speakers on any single topic, we reserve the right to limit comments to 1 minute as needed. Thank you for joining us today.
We'll now hear from John Pratt. John Prey.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, everybody. Thank you in advance for your participation today. My name is John Prey. I'm the Assistant Chief Engineer on staff here at the Commission and part of the team responsible for providing oversight for the SHOPP program. Before we hear from Caltrans, I will provide some brief background information specifically about the Commission's statutory role as it pertains to this hearing today and the adoption of the proposed 2024 SHOPP. I have one slide, if you could hit the next slide. And you can just leave this up while I'm speaking. This slide represents graphically the SHOPP adoption timeline. I like to see things visually as we talk through it. And what you see is the blue bars represent the current SHOPP that we're operating under, and the "we are" here is on the bottom. So we're currently operating under the 2022 SHOPP, and after adoption, we'll be operating under the 2024 SHOPP. But before we get to adoption, Government Code Section 14.526.5 lays out some of the requirements prior to adoption of the Commission and of Caltrans. And so this statute requires Caltrans to prepare and transmit a 4-year SHOPP to the Commission by January 31st of each year. But prior to submitting its proposed program, Caltrans is required to make a draft of its proposed program available to transportation planning agencies for review and comment, and is required to include the comments in its submittal to the Commission on January 31st. So on December 7th, 2023, that's on the left of the timeline. After the yellow was Caltrans working on and developing the 2024 SHOPP. And then on December 7th, the proposed SHOPP was made available to regional transportation planning agencies and many other stakeholders for review and comment. Caltrans accepted comments from December 7th all the way through January 19th. And then on January 31st, 2024, in accordance with the statutory requirements, the proposed 2024 SHOPP was submitted to the Commission with the comments from transportation planning agencies and other stakeholders included. Government Code Section 14.526.5 further requires the Commission to review the SHOPP relative to its overall adequacy and consistency with the asset management plan. And as part of that review, to hold at least one hearing in Northern California and one hearing in Southern California. The Southern California hearing is what we're doing here today. And I'd like to thank all of you in advance for your participation in today's hearing, as your participation is valuable to the Commission in carrying out its responsibilities. Finally, after the hearings, so just another note to the slide, we're in the orange reviewing the 2024 SHOPP right now. That we are here, you can see the hearings are right above it. After these hearings, once the Commission finds that the SHOPP is consistent with law and consistent with the asset management plan, the Commission is required to adopt the SHOPP and submit it to the legislature and governor by April 1st. The Commission may decline to adopt the SHOPP if it determines it is not consistent with the law or that it is not sufficiently consistent with the asset management plan. After adoption by the Commission, any change to a programmed SHOPP project's scope, costs, schedule, or benefits requires Commission approval. The policies and procedures for development of the SHOPP and for the management of the SHOPP after adoption are outlined in the Commission's SHOPP guidelines. These guidelines can be found on our website. And lastly, I want to throw in one quick plug for a future engagement opportunity. Immediately after adoption of the 2024 SHOPP, the Commission will begin considering updates to the SHOPP guidelines. Our kickoff workshop is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, April 10th. And a save the date for that workshop will be coming soon. We're excited to invite all of you to participate in that process with us as well. So that concludes my remarks under item number 2.
Thank you, John. Any comment on item 2? All right, hearing none, we're going to go back to John Prey.
Thank you, Commissioner. Item number 3 will be a presentation from Caltrans giving an overview of the proposed 2024 SHOPP. Mike Johnson, the State Asset Management Engineer, will be giving the presentation, and so I'll turn it over to Mike.
Good morning, Commissioner, Executive Director, Commission staff, and attendees. I'm happy to be here this morning for the first hearing for the 2024 draft SHOPP. I have a presentation that I'm going to go through that provides a background of how we got the SHOPP, why these projects, and hopefully we'll answer a lot of the questions that folks may have. And then following the presentation, I'm happy to hear any questions that we may have. As John mentioned, my name is Michael Johnson. I am the Caltrans State Asset Management Engineer. One of my roles is to coordinate the development of the SHOPP. Next slide, please. So this is the process laid out in the form of our deliverables, if you will. Starting on the left of this screen, we have the California Transportation Asset Management Plan. This plan is developed every 4 years. It is adopted by the Transportation Commission in accordance with statute. The Transportation Asset Management Plan is written around a network of infrastructure that includes both state and locally owned assets. So we have assets that Caltrans manages, as well as assets that many cities and counties in California manage. In order to operationalize the Transportation Asset Management Plan within Caltrans and align it with the SHOPP, we produce a document called the State Highway System Management Plan. To give you an idea of the differences, when we do the Transportation Asset Management Plan, we're looking statewide at 4 core assets and about 8 supplementary asset classes. So there's a total of about 12 items that we're looking at. When we move to the State Highway System Management Plan, the level of detail goes way up. We expand that to about 35 different objectives that the SHOPP has, which run the spectrum of physical asset condition preservation and renewal, to safety, to facility management and rehabilitation replacement, to operational improvements on the state highway system, environmental initiatives, regulatory initiatives, as well as court mandated initiatives. So collectively, we've got to look at over 35 different areas that we organize the SHOPP around. And we do this for each of the 12 Caltrans districts. So you take 35, you've got 12 districts. We go from, in a sense, a 4x1 matrix in the TAMP to over 400 different performance evaluations that are done in the SHSMP. So the State Highway System Management Plan is about 100 times more granular than the California Transportation Asset Management Plan. And it's specifically limited to just the portion of the transportation system in California that Caltrans has jurisdiction over maintaining, the state highway system. Once we've done all of that work, we develop what we call district performance plans. In other words, I develop a plan for each that is tailored to each one of our 12 districts and provide that to each of our district directors. And it gives the district directors a specific set of project outcomes that they must achieve, and it gives them a budget to achieve those things. So when we talk about the State Highway System Management Plan, we are talking about a plan that does both an unconstrained assessment, in other words, what are the total needs of the system, and it also produces a fiscally constrained plan. That fiscally constrained plan is where we apply the funding that we anticipate to the objectives we're trying to achieve and say, okay, this is what we think we can get. And we break that down to each one of the districts. Our districts, which then work with the local communities, transportation stakeholders, and other interested parties to develop a set of projects. And that set of projects gets represented in what we call the 10-year project book. The project book has historically been a paper document, as shown here on this screen. It has recently been made available to the public at projectbook.dot.ca.gov in an interactive dashboard. So at any point in time, we update that dashboard typically every quarter. Right now, we're doing it after each commission meeting until the SHOPP is adopted. So if you were to go to projectbook.dot.ca.gov today, you would see all of the projects that comprise the 2024 SHOPP, including all commission actions that took place at the January commission meeting. So as a result of that frequent update, if, I made a presentation at the commission meeting, you're going to see some of the same slides. The numbers are a little bit different. And that's because in the January commission meeting, the commission took action and added 18 additional projects to the 2024 SHOPP. So those numbers are reflected in this updated slide deck. So just want to make sure folks don't get confused and say, well, you said, this in January and now you're saying something else in February. The difference is all of the commission's January actions being reflected. But once the districts start putting the projects together, they put them forward in some software that we manage in asset management. And those projects can have a whole suite of different activities on them. In fact, if you go to the projectbook.dot.ca.gov and you look at the dashboard, it will show you everything that we have defined that project is doing. So a project that is characterized as primarily a pavement project, you will be able to see everything that project's doing. So if the project's doing work on the drainage system under the highway before the rehabilitation, you'll see that. If we're doing bicycle pedestrian work, you'll see that. If we're doing climate work or safety work, all of that is exposed and available to the public in that dashboard. When the districts put those projects together, every quarter we recertify that project book. And the reason we have to recertify it is because there are commission actions and costs go up and down as projects go through the planning process. Sometimes priorities change, sometimes projects move in and out in time. So it's very dynamic. So once a quarter we say, okay, we're going to level set right now. You need to show us that your projects achieve everything that was in the district's performance plan, and you do that for the budget that we provided you. In a sense, the projects that ultimately go from the project book into the SHOPP are a function of a very specific, tailored set of desired outcomes, and the projects are developed to achieve those specific outcomes. So we take from the 10-year project book, has 10 years worth of information. You can look out, near term, or if you want to look out into projects in years that are going through the planning process right now. And I'll lay out when that is, but you can see all of it. But that most recent 2 years gets added to the prior 2 years that carry over from the 2022 SHOPP to make the new 2024 SHOPP. So that's the process of which we go to get the specific projects with the scopes that come into to this hearing and will be before the commission in March. As an added check on that set of work and to look at it over time, we also produce every June something called the Annual Performance Benchmark Report. And this report is tracking longer-term progress towards specific targets that were established in the SB1 legislation for the condition of some assets, as well as a number of commission-adopted performance targets in other areas. So that we are now just beginning to start looking at the 2024 Performance Benchmark Report. But this, look for that in June, but that's another check to say, okay, is it really working? This is looking at it from a very different perspective than the project perspective. It's looking at it from a system view. What is the condition of the pavement on the system? What is the condition of the bridges? So it's through this process, which takes from the State Highway System Management Plan through the SHOPP is at least a 2-year process. And then adding the benchmarks is about another 6 months. So it's about a 2.5-year cycle that we're just operating on and updating this information as we go. Next slide, please. Okay, so it can get very confusing, I think, to folks that don't operate in this circle every day, and sometimes it's confusing even to those that do. So I retooled this slide a little bit to show things differently, to kind of convey the timelines of all of this. So when we talk about the 2024 state SHOPP, it is based on the performance and budgets that were assigned in the 2021 State Highway System Management Plan. At the time that we put out the 2021 State Highway System Management Plan, the next SHOPP, with the active SHOPP when we put it out was 2020. We rolled into the 2022 SHOPP. And so you could see that 2021 State Highway System Management Plan really included, in a sense, 5 years of programmed work and 5 years that there was no work programmed from 26, 27 and onward. So in 2021 and 2022, 23 fiscal years, we began planning for this SHOPP that we're talking about today. So the planning took place over those 2 fiscal years, 21, 22, 22, 23, for this particular SHOPP. Just next animation, please. So today, where we sit in 2023-24 fiscal year, the current State Highway System Management Plan is the 2023 plan. And this is leading us to planning that is 25% complete for the 2026 SHOPP. And so if you just look down, we are in 23-24 right now. Come June, we will be 50% done of the planning work for the 2026 SHOPP. Next animation. So it's important to understand the timelines here. So the planning that was done in 21, 22, 22, 23 gets plugged in the last 2 years of the 2024 SHOPP, because the first 2 years are being carried forward from the 2022 SHOPP. And this cycle just repeats. Next animation. So as we begin the development of the 2025 State Highway System Management Plan, that will inform planning for the 2028 SHOPP, which will begin in the 2030, 31, and 31, 32 fiscal years. So I think the important thing that I wanted to show with this graphic is that from the time we're planning work until it appears in the SHOPP, there is a number of years that take place. There's 2 years of planning, plus the 2 years of queued up projects that we have from the carryover SHOPP. So we're generally depositing new work in years 4, 5, and 6, but mostly 5 and 6. And that's really important because as the department pivots, as we make policy changes, I often get the question, why don't we see those projects right now? And the reason is, if we pivot today in policy, we will see those projects in the 28, 29, 29, 30 year. Because right now we are planning for the 2026 SHOPP. So there is a time lag, if you will, that influences specific projects. And I hope the explanation here clarifies, the question that I get a lot, like, why don't I see what I want to see right now? That's this timeline sort of lays it all out. Next slide, please. Okay, so newly updated following the January commission meeting, we now have 617 projects in the SHOPP. There's 197 new ones and 420 projects that the commission has already adopted or amended into the existing SHOPP. The total value of the projects identified to date is 16.1 billion. And the reason I say that that's the total of projects identified to date, because there are there is work that we have to anticipate for in the shop that we don't know where it is just yet. So storm damage is a perfect example. We know we're going to have storm damage. History shows us that. So we have to reserve funding in the shop to pay for that once that damage occurs and we know where we need to go work. So today the project totals 16.1 billion. The overall shop value is over 20 billion. The current project mix is shown in the table to the right, about 8.1 billion of pavement anchored projects. That doesn't mean that we're spending $8.1 billion on just pavement, but it means that pavement is the primary or largest component of a project for $8.1 billion worth of work. Bridges is the second largest at 3.2 billion. And you can see some of the other core assets, safety and others that we have to, when we look at the different breakdowns of projects within the shop. Next slide. This was new, just to freshen it up a bit from the commission meeting. We do look at the distribution of the cost of our projects for a number of reasons. We, are very focused on trying to maximize what we can make available to small and disadvantaged businesses. So we have the 16.1 billion, which is what we call the shop major. We also have $1 billion over 4 years for the shop minor, which is almost exclusively small and disadvantaged businesses that are competing with that shop minor. But you could see even here, we have projects that are under $1 million in size, at 8% between $1 and $2 million, all the way up to, projects that exceed 100 million in individual size. So there's a mix of project sizes to allow a construction industry that is of varying sizes. Next slide. This is also new since the January meeting. I wanted to talk a little bit about the kind of economy that the shop generates. So this particular shop will generate an estimated 270,000 jobs. So the shop is really quite an economic engine for California. About 59,000 of those jobs are estimated to go to be in small and disadvantaged businesses throughout California. About 45% of the projects support bike, pedestrian, or transit modes of transportation. And that's important because not all Californians own vehicles, and there are many that rely on other modes of transportation to get around. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that 45% in the future, but I wanted to just emphasize that the shop as a whole is quite an economic engine, and it's really creating opportunities across California. Next slide. In terms of what we call our core assets, these are the 4 asset classes that are specifically identified in Senate Bill 1. These are closely monitored. We have performance targets for these 4 that are in law. And this is also an area that is routinely audited by the Inspector General. This particular shop will fix over 6,100 lane miles of pavement throughout the state. We will repair over 4.6 million square feet of bridges. About 1,400 transportation management system elements. These are things like ramp meters, changeable message signs, traffic signals at the ends of ramps to the freeways. Those about 1,400 of those will be either replaced or built new in this shop. And about 300,000 feet of culvert that carry water along and under the state highway system will be repaired by this shop. Next slide. But as I mentioned, we have to balance a lot of different things when we develop the shop. So physical asset condition is something that's very important. But we have also been pivoting in recent years to be doing more zero emission modes of transportation, bike, pedestrian, or lower mode with transit. Here is, some of the accomplishments that this SHOPP will provide. In excess of 250 miles of bike facilities will be constructed or repaired. Over 25 miles of crosswalk will be added or converted to high visibility crosswalks for safety. Over 34 miles of sidewalk is included in these 617 projects, as well as transit stop improvements in 96 locations and bus bulb outs or pullouts, which allow the buses to be out of the travel lane while loading and unloading will be installed at 72 locations. Next slide. So when we talk about the bike and pedestrian and transit elements of the SHOPP, there's 279 projects of the 617 that include these features. And I say it that way, these features, it can vary quite a bit from project to project. It depends on what that particular project limits need. And what the community is looking for in that project limit. But overall, 45% of the projects in the SHOPP have some bike ped or transit element. And so that often begs the question, well, why isn't this 100%? How come 100% of the projects don't have bicycle, pedestrian, or transit scope of work included? And there's really two primary reasons. The first is there's 172 projects in this SHOPP where we say it's not feasible to include bicycle, pedestrian, or transit elements. And these are the top four causes of that. Projects on routes where bikes and pedestrians are not allowed is the #1 reason. So if we're working in the middle of the interstate, bicycle and pedestrians are prohibited from being in the interstate. So on all of those projects, it's not feasible for us to include those components within the scope of work. There are projects that we do that are environmental mitigations for other projects that we've constructed. And these are could be adjacent to the highway. In some cases, they're not adjacent to the highway. And these are another area where it doesn't really make sense to think about bicycle and pedestrian elements. When some of the projects in the SHOPP are actually contributions to our transportation partners around the state, that's another instance where we can't really impose the scope of work. We are simply providing a contribution to a larger project generally. And then we have projects that are on facilities, and many of these are Caltrans maintenance stations, Caltrans equipment yards and things where there isn't public access, so bike and ped transit facilities don't make a lot of sense there either. So those are where it's not feasible. And then there's this other set of projects where the scope is not suitable with the rest of the work. So these are things like underground work when we're working on pipes and culverts, when we're doing stormwater mitigation work. Emergency damage repair work is generally something that we need to get done extremely quickly. It's just focused on restoring existing service to the transportation system. And then we have projects that are doing electrical type of work. And again, the scope of this work is specialty to like electrical contractors that aren't also building bike and ped infrastructure. So hopefully that helps provide a little context as to why 100% of the projects won't and don't have bike and ped infrastructure on them. Next slide. For the 2024 SHOPP and actually for the 10-year plan as well, we have made available a dashboard that I talked about earlier. This is the project book.dot.ca.gov. It's a public-facing dashboard. Again, we update this typically every quarter. for the 2024 draft shop. We're updating it after each commission meeting right now. And it provides a way to query projects that anybody might be interested in isolating from the larger 617 projects. You can do that by map. So if you're interested in the projects that are in your neighborhood, you can simply use the map on the left there and zoom in on your neighborhood. And you can look at all the projects that are within the vicinity of where you work or live. If you are interested in specific aspects of projects, like, you know, I'm interested in where you're doing bike lanes. There's keyword search. You could put in the word bike and it will give you a map of the whole state of California. And you'll see all the projects that include a bike lane, a bike box, you know, bicycle safe or bicycle friendly drainage grates or rumble strips. So anything that has the word bike in it will show up in that kind of query. Once you have the map, you'll see a bunch of red, they're little triangles. They may look like dots in the webinar today. You can click on any one of those, and the section in the center of this dashboard will be updated with all of the specifics of that project, including a description of the project, exactly where it is, all of the work that's being included, so all of the activities, not just the anchor. It also includes links to Google Maps and Google Street View. So if you want to get a satellite image, or you want to see a, you know, at grade video of the highway segment there, you can look at that. And it also includes contact information within Caltrans, that if you are interested in engaging with Caltrans on this project, there is phone numbers that you can call and email addresses that you can inquire, and your inquiry would be directed to the appropriate project engineer for follow-up. In addition, on this dashboard, regardless of how you want to query, or if you want to just not put any criteria in, all of the projects show up in a table down below, and that table down below can be downloaded into Excel on your local computer to look at, slice, dice, analyze any way that you would like to do that. Next slide. So John kind of went through the schedule from the Caltrans perspective. We're here doing the South public hearing today in San Bernardino. We'll do the North hearing next week. And then, you know, we will be responding to comments we received today, those received next week, along with those that we previously received in the final version that goes before the commission in March. Next slide. And I think that's it for me. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike, for that presentation. I will now open the South hearing on the proposed 2024 SHOPP. We will take verbal comments from in-person attendees and then verbal or written comments from virtual attendees. When it's your turn to speak, please remember to state your name and your affiliation and prior to voicing your remarks. CTC staff will now lead us through public comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Grisby. We do have one virtual attendee with their hand raised at this time. I'd like to call on Jared Sanchez.
Hi there, this is Jared Sanchez from CalBike, the California Bicycle Coalition. In a letter submitted to Caltrans, CalBike and other organizations analyzed the 2024 SHOPP projects in context of Director's Policy on Complete Streets, DP37, the 2023 SHSMP, and increasing fatalities for people walking and biking. Our analysis shows that the SHOPP clearly falls short of the intent of DP37 and the goals of the 2023 SHSMP, and I'd like to share a few findings. Please see our letter for more detail. The first, our analysis finds that 45% of the SHOPP projects appear to include one or more ADA, bike, pedestrian, or public transportation elements, in line with Caltrans' claim. However, 45% is a decrease from the 47% of projects reported to include complete streets in the 2022 SHOPP. It's shocking to see this number go down despite all Caltrans districts completing active transportation plans over the last several years that identified a significant increase in complete streets asset needs since the 2022 SHOPP. Second, we also believe that it's not a meaningful statistic to cite the percentage of projects that include only one complete street element, particularly when Caltrans includes minor activities such as drainage gates and counting individual complete streets elements. Describing complete streets investments in this way violates Caltrans' own definition of complete streets from DP 37. Third, furthermore, if we specifically filter the 2024 SHOPP projects to focus only on those complete streets assets that have CTC established performance targets set in the 2023 state HSMP, which includes class 1, 2, and 4 bikeways, sidewalks, and crosswalks, only 127 projects or 21% of all projects include those meaningful complete streets elements. Fourth, the 2024 SHOPP falls well short from implementing the 10-year performance targets for complete streets, transit, and climate adaptation in 2023 SHMP. We recommend funds be set aside in 2024 SHOPP to increase investment in these assets categories equivalent to a 4-year investment required to meet the 10-year targets. Lastly, the 2024 SHOPP includes funding for projects that are receiving funds for highway, major roadway, and interchange expansions through other funding streams. These projects should be removed from the 2024 SHOPP, and this practice should be ended. We thank you for your support for complete streets investments and are eager to work with the CTC and Caltrans to fully achieve the director's policy and reach further to build out the safe transportation system of the future that all Californians deserve. Thank you.
Just a quick reminder to our virtual attendees that you may use the Q&A tab or the virtual hand raise feature to indicate you wish to comment on this item. Giving them a few moments. Not seeing any request to comment at this time.
All right, thank you. The South SHOPP hearing is now closed. I want to thank everyone for your participation in this 2024 SHOPP hearing. The meeting's now adjourned.